You're listening to another episode of Captain Vince the Early Years. Our fourth episode was originally posted on December 12th, 2008, where we explored the popularity of vampires in popular culture, and we gave a short review of the first Twilight film just after it was released. We were already torturing ourselves for the benefit of our then ultra-minuscule audience. Remember that we aren't precisely the same people we were back in the olden days, and that the opinions expressed in this podcast aren't necessarily those we hold today. But on Twilight, they really haven't changed that much. Hope you enjoy it.
Welcome once again to another exciting edition of Geek Speak the Podcast. I'm Captain Planet.
No, you're not.
Okay, I'm Captain Logan, and by your powers combined, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince. Vince-topher Walken's taking a break this week.
Today, our topic will be about vampires, and we'll be talking about why we think that vampires are still so very popular in modern culture. But first, we go to this weekend's box office, which was depressing, to say the least. Yep.
Roughly the same as last week.
Yes, roughly the same, only, well, roughly in a couple of ways. Four Christmases was still at top.
Yeah.
Snort. Sigh. It's 17 million, and Twilight is in its third week, made 13. Bolt did 9. Australia is fourth in its second week with 7 million, tied with Quantum of Solace's fourth week with also 7 million. So Vince kind of spent the weekend in the movie theater.
I did. I surely
Apparently
did.
you were the only one who was there,
Yeah.
according to these numbers, but...
First off, I went to see Australia, and it was me and a bunch of old people, which I personally appreciated, because they were all quiet. With the exception of two people behind me. And I don't get that, but anyway. And then I went to see Twilight with Captain Logan here.
Yes, we went and saw that, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
And then I went to see Punisher Warzone.
Well, Vince, how was that? So how come Punisher Warzone in its first week couldn't make the top 5, Vince?
Well, I would say it's probably due to the staggering number of plot holes in the movie and the fact that it was just poorly written. I don't think anybody thought about it further than how can we make these characters die? I think that's essentially it. Now, I was extremely nice to it in my review, and I think anybody that reads it's going to say, did he like this or did he hate this? I can't tell.
That was kind of my response, yeah.
But I appreciated it for what it was trying to be, but it was still a crappy movie.
I'm surprised that any Marvel film could open at less than 7 million its opening weekend.
I think one of the major reasons why it would do so poorly is because of the commercials featuring Jigsaw. I think if they just had a bunch of action shots of the Punisher, you'd have had every teenage boy going to go see it.
Yeah, maybe. Although I don't know, I saw several that didn't have much Jigsaw, in them at all.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But it did just look like a badly made movie to me.
It does. And when you watch it, it does look like a badly made movie.
Well, when you watch it, because I'm not going to.
I'll get it on DVD anyway, because I'm a collector.
So vampires.
Vampires. Let's get to something that's equally as depressing.
So vampires. Vampires have been popular forever.
They have. This is true.
And it's interesting that I think in our modern culture that vampires are still so extremely popular, and that something like Twilight, as abysmal as I thought it was, could do 70 million its opening weekend.
I think the essential reason why vampires are still so ungodly popular, is the sexual aspect. Because as you were saying yesterday to somebody, is that vampires are extremely sexualized. They always have been. Even Twilight, in its teenage, crap fest, is still sexualized.
Yeah.
All of the teenage girls in the audience swooned when Mr. Paleface showed up.
That's absolutely right. Now, of course, the Twilight vampires. Not that I really want to compare them to cool vampires, but I guess I will.
Buffy and Angel stuff.
Yeah, which is what I really want to talk about here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, but who doesn't?
For no good reason other than I love them so very much.
They are great.
Unlike those vampires, these ones don't seem to mind eating I mean, sucking the blood of the same sex, and there's been a lot of continuities where you have vampires who like either, I think there might even be some where they have to do the opposite sex, but I think more often it's just that's the preference. And in Buffy and Angel that was the preference. If you'll remember, there were a couple especially that just hated ever having to go after the same sex. Angel didn't like it. Spike didn't like it. Or Angel when he was in Jealous.
Yes, that's true. And Spike, in his personal preference, liked the blood of slayers, apparently.
I think maybe before we get into just overarching vampire stuff, we ought to talk about how bad Twilight was, because frankly that was the only reason we went to see it, because we wanted to talk about it on the podcast, and because so many people have been coming up to me especially. I don't know if you've had
I haven't had
conversations with people, but I don't know. I keep talking to folks I know, and they're like, "So how's that Twilight movie? It's got vampires in it, so you went and saw it, right?" And I'm like, "Why would I do that?" But anyway, so we did, and I gave it a good try.
Yeah.
I didn't give it the benefit of the doubt, because I really had a lot of doubts. but we went and we hoped we'd be surprised. It was the sort of thing like Catwoman where you go with no expectations, and I had none, and was still sorely disappointed.
Yeah, same here. This is true.
Okay, so why don't we just go back and forth? This will be fun. What was your biggest problem with it, Vince?
My biggest problem with it was probably, well, other than everything.
Yeah, let's narrow it down a little bit, because it's not fair for us to just go, we're not 13-year-old girls, so we didn't like it. I mean, there really are reasons, and they're worth mentioning.
Well, it seemed like most of the scenes in the movie had no bearing on anything in the movie.
What do you mean by that?
They were just these throwaway scenes where they could have... They've already taken care of it. They've established certain ideas, certain themes, and then we recover it 30 million times throughout the rest of the movie.
Constant recapping. I've been told that the book does the same thing. I had a conversation with my sister yesterday who has read the book, and told me that she didn't realize... And my sister, by the way, is not a 13-year-old girl. She's a 19-year-old girl. and she said that she didn't realize the book was so bad till she saw the movie and realized how many things they had in common. And then she came out of the theater not only not liking the movie, but also not liking the book anymore, which is really kind of interesting. But she was like, because I asked her, I said, was the dialogue in the book so extremely generic and badly written? And she said, yeah, but I didn't notice it until I went and saw the film. And I thought that was kind of funny. She said, but yeah, like I said, that constant recapping, and but that seems to be a thing that a lot of juvenile books do. Juvenile, I mean, teen book series.
They don't trust their reader to be able to remember anything from 20 pages ago.
Yeah, and it's not fair to the reader. What's weird is a lot of readers don't seem to notice it. So maybe they do need it, but with Twilight, I especially don't think they do. Twilight is as a story was so very basic. And like I said, I hate to keep using the word generic, but we'll get back to that. There was a lot of generic vampire stuff you'd expect, and a lot of stuff that's been done better a million times.
Yeah.
And but as far as just the story goes, it was very simple, very basic, and did not require recapping. And because in order to make the recapping make sense, air quotes, you needed a protagonist in the character of Bella who is really slow on the draw. Constantly. It takes her forever to catch anything.
And the big reveal scene where she has to say that he's a vampire.
That's right, because he keeps going to say it, and she's like, say it, and when she's like that, I found myself wondering if she really still wasn't sure what he was, or if she just didn't know if she wanted to say it out loud. And then she was like, vampire, and like, is the audience supposed to be all like, ooh, because we went to see it knowing it was a vampire movie. That's the problem with these kind of reveals, when a major character in a movie finally figures out the big thing that you knew the whole time. Like, the fact that there were vampires in Sunnydale comes out in the first 5 minutes of the pilot of Buffy. You know why? Because anybody watching a show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they're gonna know there's vampires in it.
Well, praise God on that one.
I'm not saying that a movie called Twilight, you're necessarily going to go, ooh, vampires, but Anybody who went to see it knew it was a vampire movie.
That's true. And the books were so popular, I think, that they ought to... It
Most
was in
people
pop
ought to
culture
know.
by now.
That's right.
So,
A lot of people are already saying that this is the next Harry Potter, and which is silly and sounds bad. But the problem is they may be onto something simply
Yeah.
because simply because it did so well at the box office. Having said that, I wonder if enough people who went and were expecting to be good will have a reaction similar to my sister and be disappointed because they realize that what may have kind of sort of worked for some people in the novel doesn't translate to screen.
mm-hmm.
Now, is it possible that subsequent sequels could be better? Maybe.
I doubt it. I sincerely doubt it from what they have established to be carrying on from the first movie into a sequel.
They've already fired the director, though. They're going to bring in somebody else.
Which is funny because I was looking on Rotten Tomatoes and I was looking for actual positive reviews, which they have a decent number.
Yeah, but
of.
its percentage count on the tomato meter was like, what, 22,
Yeah.
18? I mean, it was really low.
For how bad it was, I was surprised it had as many good reviews as it did.
So was I, but again, you would even still expect more a large percentage considering how well it did at the box office.
Yeah.
And I hate to keep going back to that, but you got to remember that the movie that broke all the records after Titanic was Spider-Man, and it did 119 its opening weekend.
That's right.
And Twilight did 70. And of course, last year this last year, Dark Knight beat all the records except for Titanic. I think I don't remember. I'm not. I know what it is. It beat the opening weekend, but nothing has still beat the overall that Titanic has. I think that's the deal, but I can't remember. But anyway, so this thing did like this giant opening weekend, but nobody likes it. That's kind of interesting, or at least none of the reviewers like it.
Yeah.
Ebert gave it a 2.5. He gave it 2.5 stars, and basically
He was being nice.
He was being nice, and basically. And I didn't get the sense I got with his Hitman review, like we were talking about last week, where I think he actually liked that movie. I think Twilight, he was giving it more of a benefit of the doubt because of the audience it was for, and he was basically saying, "I'm not in that audience, but the audience it was written for will like it." and I guess he's right, but it makes me feel weird about this up and coming generation.
Oh yeah. I can, going back to the Harry Potter thing, I can see why somebody would say this could be the next Harry Potter because it's based on a book, and it's based on a juvenile book. And it's just something that could keep pumping out sequels upon sequels until people get ultimately sick of it. But there is a significant quality difference in Harry Potter.
That's right.
I think at least the Harry Potter books are pretty good. The movies get increasingly worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, and see, not in mine. I think actually for Harry Potter, I think you have to look at them as separate films because some of them are very good, some of them are not, and they kind of go alternate for me actually. Okay. This last one I thought was the best of the five,
which is interesting. I thought it was the worst.
I thought it was absolutely excellent. And what's cool about it, what's funny about it is that that's the book I haven't read. I stopped at 4 because the books keep getting increasingly longer, and every time I read one, I feel like I need to go back and reread all the other ones because I read them in high school, and so it's been 6 years, and so I don't remember. And so then I'm like, well, I don't have the time to go back and read the books. So I based my liking on Harry Potter 5, I mean, whether or not I liked it, I based this, of course, on whether or not it was a good movie without having read the book, and it holds together excellently without having read the book. But I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But
and by the way, Harry Potter
infinitely better acting.
Harry Potter still better than Twilight. Harry Potter on its worst day still better than Twilight.
By leaps and bounds.
Oh yes.
So I mean, let's outline a couple of problems for the folks that might still be considering going to see this horrendous film. So the vampires are far too powerful. Let's talk about it in terms of vampires for just a moment.
Yeah.
The vampires are far too powerful, and they have very few weaknesses. Apparently, if you rip their heads off, they burst into flames.
I thought they lit him on fire.
Did they light him on fire?
They just didn't show it. I think they mentioned earlier in the movie that they had to chop him up and then light him on fire.
I couldn't get a good sense of it, but okay, so
it wasn't choreographed very well.
Yeah, and I couldn't decide. Okay, well that's fine, but it what was I gonna say? So they have no weaknesses other than just being killed like any other regular human can be killed.
Yeah.
But I missed that. I mean, there's they don't like to go into sunlight, but it's not because it hurts them. It's because it shows what they really look like, which is all glittery faced, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I noticed him smoking, but I'm guessing it was cold out there, and that was steam. But then again, he's really cold.
But he wasn't in pain.
Yeah, he didn't. The only thing he seemed to be having difficulty in that scene was telling her that he's a monster. Which, personally, if I was acting his role, I would have difficulty saying, "I'm a sparkly monster."
Oh, and Vince, we have every reason to believe that these vampires aren't hurt whatsoever by sunlight because of the fact that they live in a house that's made completely of glass.
This is true. Yes.
And it seemed like they only did that just to be ironic and for no other reason, and it served no purpose at all. Like
they have a line in there.
Yeah, because they're like, "What did you expect? Coffins and things?" And it's like, well, no. And it would have been cool if there was a good reason for this, but there's not. It's just simply, we like glass just like that ex person. You know?
I like coffins personally, so.
so that was very strange. But yeah, there's none of the usual stuff that you associate with vampire lore besides drinking blood and being really strong. And some of the other superpowers they give them have been given to vampires at other times, but they have more vampire abilities than you usually get and much, much fewer weaknesses. They can fly, they can jump really high, they can run really fast, they're really strong, and they can read minds. And that's a lot of superpowers for somebody that doesn't have any regular or any regular vampire weaknesses.
And my personal problem with the superpowers that they displayed is that there was no reason for displaying the superpowers other than just having an exhibition to show people that they actually have superpowers.
They didn't do anything with them.
Yeah, it's just, look, I can rip a tree out of the ground. Okay, but, you could have just told her that you could rip a tree out of the ground. I'm pretty sure she'd believe you because she saw you stop a truck.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, this makes me want to mention the funniest part of the entire film.
Which is?
Which is, she's buying all of this, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know where this is going.
Yes, I do.
So Bella's buying all of this vampire stuff once they finally get to it, and then he takes her to his family's house for, air quotes, dinner. But of course they don't eat, so they make her dinner, and then they find out that she's already eaten, so one of them gets really angry with her, and it was kind of silly. And then he takes her into his actually there's two really funny parts in the same scene, because he takes her into his bedroom and she says, "You have no bed?" And he has a futon in the room.
There is a bed. I was sitting in the theater. I said, "Isn't that a bed?" And Captain Logan says, "Yes, that is a bed." That's what I thought.
I mean, it's not a bed. It looked like a futon to me, but it was still it was something you sleep on.
It was a flat mattress-laden thing.
Another superpower. These vampires don't have to sleep.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And that's why he's supposed to not have a bed, but he's got one. Now it's got papers and stuff all over it, but I know lots of guys who have beds that have papers all over them that just take them off when they go to sleep.
Another modern characteristic to the supposedly 90-year-old vampire.
We'll get to that thing in a minute, though. That's really fun. We'll get there. So then, what he does is he grabs her and they jump out of the window, and now they're flying, and they fly all the way up to the top of the highest tree there in the mountains. and he gets her up there, and this is the point of the movie where she says, "I don't believe any of this." She says, "This can't possibly be real." And Vince turns to me and he says, "What?"
A tree?
Trees aren't real. Because she already knows all this other stuff is real, but tree is not real.
Well, of course you can rip a tree from the ground, but if this tree couldn't possibly exist.
Okay, so he's a 90-year-old vampire. And he's a 90-year-old vampire, but he acts just like a teenager through the entire film. And she has a line early on where she says, "Sometimes you sound like you're from another time." And he doesn't. And neither does the rest of his family. They all sound exactly like everybody else in the movie. Everybody has the same voice in the movie. That's one of the problems with it.
Which I assume, yeah, exactly. I assume they did that to make it more accessible to the modern audience. But, then just make it accessible to the modern audience and forget all of this legacy that you're trying to develop that doesn't actually come to fruition.
Yeah, it really doesn't. So other major issues we had with it is the villain is introduced in the third act.
Yeah.
That was a problem I had.
His motivation makes little sense.
He's basically for those of you listening that know what this is, he's basically like a Herosian from Star Trek Voyager. He wants to hunt, and there's no good reason. That's what he does.
Hey, Billy Bob, let's go kill us some people.
Well,
yeah.
the thing too is, it's not like she's the only person around.
I know.
And he doesn't even really know the main vampire guy very well, so I don't know why he's trying to get back at him for any reason. It's just sort of like, oh look, a girl, I better go chase her through counties and states and things, and I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me. Then there's the fact that there's a whole lot of places where they just stare at each other.
Oh yeah.
For tons of time.
A lot of wasted scenes.
A lot of wasted scenes.
They do nothing. There's either the dialogue is meaningless, the scene is meaningless, or they just sit there and they do nothing.
Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of things I liked about it.
Yeah. There was a couple good jokes, but there was so many bad ones that the mediocre jokes get lost in the crap.
The two main characters are basically very generic versions of Buffy and Angel. Everything this movie tried to do, Buffy and Angel has done better.
Oh yeah.
And it makes me wonder if the reason this is so popular is because we've got this younger generation that didn't grow up with Buffy and Angel.
That could be. It'd be nice.
And so they're not aware of it, you know.
It'd be nice to televise some reruns, you know. That'd be nice.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen very often anymore. FX used to televise them all the time. And of course, you know, you can get them on DVD and stuff now, but there's no reason to go out and get them unless you know of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the idea of parents introducing their kids to Buffy and Angel is kind of strange, and it's going to take another generation before that happens very much. So, yeah. So anyway, because you know, I mean, Buffy just ended in like 03, and Angel ended in like 04, so it hasn't been that long. It's been long enough that the 13-year-olds that are around right now, they weren't watching the stuff when they were 7.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? So that's the problem with that. Now, a lot of people that I went to high school with that watched Buffy and Angel didn't like Angel himself.
The character?
Yeah, in Buffy. And a lot of them liked him better when he got his own show. But
because he was more interesting in Angel than he was in Buffy.
He was, but in like the first couple of seasons, they felt like there was way too much teen angst. And that there was, and that this romance between them, that he was just too whiny. That Buffy had to be the man in the relationship, and that Angel was too whiny.
You know, it's kind of the way I felt, but on the same note, I let them, it's not like I had any say, but I gave them some slack in my opinion of the show, because I think that's the point, is to show that this teenage girl has the power. And it's a comedic device, as well as something interesting to do with the plot.
He did annoy me in places, and he got better when he got his own show, like we said.
I liked when they stabbed him with a sword. That was nice.
Do you mean when she stabs him with a sword and then pushes him into the alternate dimension?
Yes.
The hell dimension that he's in for like 100 years, but only like months pass in the real world. Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. That was the end of the second season when he was Angelus, and then just as he gets his soul back, she pushes him through.
The whininess made sense there.
Can you please not stab me with a sword? Well, not that Angel sounded like that, you know.
Buffy.
Did you, now you didn't watch all the way through Buffy, did you?
No, I got to about the 4th season, lost interest, and stopped.
But you saw all of Angel.
Yes, I saw all of Angel.
And I know you don't like 4th season, but you like most of the rest of it.
Oh, yeah. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th were great. 4th was terrible.
What's your take on Faith?
Faith? Well, I like what she does within the series, but I think her characterization is probably the most irritating thing I've seen in a while. This whole 5x5, which does supply a good line in the TV show. 5x5, what does that even mean?
What does that even mean?
But Faith is so trying to be hip for I don't know whose generation, and
you just weren't getting it?
It grates on my nerves.
Yeah,
I understand it's supposed to be comedic, but it's so irritating.
I think after first season Angel, when they have that, what I think is a really stellar 2-parter, where she finally goes to jail, I think every time she's brought back after that, she's a lot better.
Agreed. They take away a lot of that hipster stuff and make her an injured person, at least injured mentally.
Yeah, but it's interesting that because she's injured, but she's not a victim.
Yes, that's right.
You know, and so then she's got Faith and Angel always made more sense than Faith and Buffy, because she has a lot in common with Angel. She's got this dark past that she wants to get rid of. Mm-hmm. They're both atoning for things, and they make a big deal out of that in that 2-parter. But every time she comes back, they deal with that. Vince, 2-minute rant time.
All right, for my 2-minute rant, ladies and gentlemen, I read an article in Rolling Stone about werewolves being part of or being popularized next year, which they don't really show a whole lot of evidence that that's going to happen. I mean, there is Benicio del Toro's, I think that's his name, isn't it? Yeah, whatever. Some actor who's going to take up the role of the Wolfman, the remake of the 40s film. And I hope that's good. I don't know if it will be. There was a book that came out recently, written entirely in free form, or free verse rather, about werewolves called Sharp Teeth. And I don't know how that's even in free verse, because that should be poetry, and it's a novel. And then there's Underworld 3, which if you saw the first in the search, Underworld 3, the search for something good. Well, I don't think it's going to be part of pop culture. I just don't think, well, it is part of pop culture. I don't think it'll be popularized because, as Rolling Stone put it, werewolves are basically the blue-collar monster. They're not sexual, they're beastly. And it's not, pretty much things that are beastly are not popularized. And personally, I love werewolves, but it's just not going to happen, and that saddens and depresses me. So this isn't so much a rant as it is a gripe, but maybe Wolfman will be good. I have hopes. They have some production stills that look really neat, but I digress. And that's my 2-minute rant of the week.
Okay, well, my 2-minute rant has absolutely nothing to do with vampires and werewolves.
What?
No, I don't know. I felt the need to do this at least, well, to do this one, to not at least once. I don't want to do this again. So my 2-minute rant, believe it or not, is going to be about Power Rangers. Yeah, and here's the reason. When I was a kid, I was a huge Power Rangers fan, and I actually followed it from the, well, not the beginning. I started in like second season of the original series, Mighty Morphin, and then I followed it all the way through Turbo, which was really abysmal.
Astounding.
Well, in like, yeah, and when I say abysmal, I mean like, you know, comparatively to you know, because it's not like Power Rangers was ever really good, but you know, good, like, anyway, it's not like Dark Knight good, you know, Dark Knight versus Power Rangers. Anyway, so then a few years back they did they did a series called Power Rangers Dino Thunder, where they brought back Tommy, and I actually watched that because it was really pretty good, and they made fun of themselves a lot, which was fun. But just before that, and ever since then, they keep doing a new series every year. They just make up a new concept, and it's just Power Rangers something rather. Right now they're in Jungle Fury. I don't know what it'll be next year, and it's always something different. And what I don't like about that is that someday my wife and I are going to have kids, and they're going to want to watch Power Rangers, and it's going to be on season like 22, and they're going to want to watch it, and they're going to have no idea what, air quotes, good Power Rangers is. And they're going to be, and every season, they're going to have to start over with some new cast, some new thrown together idea. And I kind of wish they'd pick a decent one and just run with it. And I thought maybe Dino Thunder would be the one a few years ago, back in 04. I thought that they'd run with it and we would get multiple seasons, and it didn't. Then they went to something else, SPD, which was no good. Futuristic Power Rangers, no good. Anyway, so that's my 2-minute rant. Oh, and whoever decided to turn way back in the day to turn Lord Zed into a nice human guy, that was the worst thing that ever happened, because Lord Zed was one of the best villains ever. That's my 2-minute rant. Woo! So join us again. I think we're actually gonna maybe do another one this week. I think this will be a week of 2 podcasts.
Ooh, 2 of them.
Yeah, we'll try it. We'll see if we can get one together for Friday, and we'll do Vampires Part 2.
Vampires Part 2.
So I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And thanks once again for listening to Geek Speak, the podcast.
Thank you.